for the project. And by way of introduction, our mission is to basically develop or come up with a citizens-led development plan or vision book for Rivers State. Just as we can see, the last development plan that Rivers State had was back in the 90s. This was championed by His Royal Highness Sir Alfred the 85th when he was governor at 24. And just as we can see, some of the um, really beautiful developments that came from that plan can be seen even till today. The Pamode Breweries, which is now the called International Breweries, the glass company, the Reason Palm, even the current state civil service secretariat. This is still what is being used till date. And so for the last 50 years, there has been no plan for Rivers State from 1975 down to today's present day. Between this period, we've had about 4 governors, we've had 7 election cycles, we've had over $7 billion in revenue, but there's no plan, there's no vision to make this money or to help us make this money, take this money into very, very good years. Um, we have this slide that talks about all that we've done so far. We have a survey that is still ongoing, but that survey has reached over 4,000 people, 4,000 citizens in Rivers State. And we've also had, like I said earlier, this is the 17th thematic consultation. We've had, we've touched several sectors, education and academia. We've had healthcare, culture and tourism. The very first one was media and entertainment. We've done so good in trying to reach out to experts in all of these sectors to get expert ideas from them to be able to have a very, very solid vision book for our dear state. We've also had very special sessions and strategic dialogues uh, where we had people like Dr. Tayo of NESG. We spoke to Mrs. Coco. Mrs. Coco was the one who had championed the UNESCO World Book Capital for Port Harcourt in 2014. We also spoke to Mrs. Ibim Seminitari, who is the past MD of NDDC, amongst other very important people. We also had KIIs, key informant interviews, where we spoke to people who work within and out of River State, but have enough and very valid ideas for what we are doing with Rivers Vision 2015. Right. We had a very special one. The one where we had the Gen Alpha roundtable, and we had spoken to some of the smartest kids in our and around River State. It was a very, very good conversation. We had spoken to them on what are their expectations for the next 25 years. It was a very beautiful conversation. I would encourage every one of us to also for those of us who are not on that call, to go to YouTube and rewatch that session. We had foresight lesson sessions where we spoke to Sophie Hall from Wales. We had spoken to Habis. Habis is from Qatar. Habis, the conversation with Habis was the very first one that we had. And then we also spoke to Dr. Aaron of Singapore. In the course of this project so far, we've had members of our task force speak and appear in radio sessions, TV sessions, including podcasts as well. We've also had some of us grace some events like TEDx Port Harcourt. Eben was there. He spoke at that event. There was Tech Up Port Harcourt. Eben was also there. We also had South Media Week, Niger Delta Digital Summit, meetings with student union government officials in all the universities in River State, some members of the steering committee, and Eben was also in that meeting. Right. So our commitment, basically, we are committed to doing about 15 thematic sessions, and we we are happy to say that we exceeded that. We've done, as in after today, we will have done 17 thematic sections. We've also had three global sessions, about 20 plus expert dialogues and interviews. That's KIIs. We've also had about 10 plus media platforms. And like I said earlier, over 4,000 people across the states on the survey. All right, and what's coming soon is the Rivers 2050 Vision Book, and this is what all of what we are doing is all about. So all of the findings that we are getting from these focus group discussions will be channeled into this Rivers 2050 vision. Everything that we are going to say today, and I'm speaking to our guests and experts on the call, everything that we are going to say is going to be part of what will be in this Rivers 2050 vision book. And all of us on all of us on the call, I'm talking to the experts, will be clearly um, re will be clearly remarked. All the names of the experts will be written as well as part of the people who contributed to this this wonderful blueprint, right? So as we already know, this will be the first of its kind in Africa, as in first in its kind as per the first vision book that is co-created by the people, co-created, co-authored by the citizens, right? Typically, it's always from the government, but this time it comes from the people, from bottom up, right? And this will be the very first of its kind in Africa. And what will the book contain? People's voices, experts' insights, like what we will have today, community ideas from the survey. The survey has been taken across all the local governments in Rivers State. Also, visual futures. We've used AI to just like the image on this vision book here. We've used AI to develop some images of what the future should look like for River States. Also importantly is that we'll have policy pathways, that is actionable steps for the government and both and also the citizens to work on as well. So please stay updated via our website, which is rivers2050.org. You can also see and watch previous sessions on our YouTube channel, which is at Policy Shapers. Not just the FGDs are on the YouTube channel, but the key informant interviews and also some meetings as well are also on the YouTube channel. So we are encouraged to stay updated via this website, even as the FGD comes to a close. All right, so to take us deep into today's conversation, which is on agriculture and food security, we have about three big questions that we hope to answer today. That by the end of this session today, we would have answered. And the very first of that is, how do we make land accessible for agricultural purposes in River State? So I think research has it that about 39 to 40% of River State land in River State is suitable for agricultural purposes. But one of the things that we hope to bring out of the conversation today is, more than it being suitable, is it accessible, and how can we make it even more accessible? So that is the very first question. The second question is, how can we move from subsistence to commercial agriculture? I think that about 70 to 80% of the agricultural setting in River State are also small scale. So only about 15 to 20% are operating on the commercial scope of things, right? So one of the things we will get from this conversation is how we can successfully move a greater percentage of people from the subsistence to the commercial settings, right? And the last question will be, what should a sustainable food systems framework for River State look like, right? So typically, we've always thought that this has been very much linear. That is from farming, should we call it production, straight to consumption. But we should be looking at an even more sustainable framework. And that's why we have this cycle on the screen that goes from production down to processing to distribution and then to consumption, right? So production, and if you look closely, you see that part of this production is that we captured the aspect of aquaculture because of the peculiarity of our own terrain that have a lot of water bodies. And we take it down to processing that now, gives value to what we have produced, and then distribution, ensuring that consumption actually happens. And then in the consumption is where the purchases happen. And if you look closely as well, you will see composting, which is the last part of that consumption. All right, please confirm you can still hear me. Uh, I will take I'll take it now to the experts. Meeting our experts for today. So the very first on this list is Zigha Timothy, who is from Bayelsa. He is a visionary from Bayelsa and is a person who is passionate about rewriting the narrative of the average Niger Delta youth, who is perceived as restive. With over 10 years of work experience in youth development, he has designed, managed, and facilitated major trainings in human capacity development for well over 5,000 individuals and volunteers. This includes specialized trainings for corporate organizations in Nigeria. He's also the MD and CEO of Zigha Limited, popularly referred as the ZAL Group. The ZAL Group is an economic and enterprise development firm with investments in agriculture. So Zigha holds a bachelor's degree in public administration from the University of Calabar in Nigeria. As an enterprise development enthusiast, Zigha has embarked on several personal development trainings and certifications from renowned institutions, including LBS, Erasmus University, Pan Atlantic University, Porto Novo, to mention but a few. So we are happy to have Zigha on this call. The very next guest on the call is Oteheri Akinruntan. Oteheri is one of the founding members of Policy Shapers, and she has done so good with policy developments across the country. Oteheri is a development consultant with over 15 years in program design, stakeholder engagement, gender and social inclusion, agricultural policy, and peace building in Nigeria. Oteheri has served as a technical project coordinator for agriculture policy development in Delta, Edo, and Ondo states, co-developing policy frameworks that were formally validated and launched at the gubernatorial level. She has also managed complex government engagement processes across cassava, cocoa, oil palm, uh, amongst other value chains, right? On the business development front, she has contributed to securing over $50 million in grant funding for food security and diversification projects and programs in Nigeria. This particular facet of I will benefit our conversation so much today. Like I said earlier, Oteheri is a founding member of Policy Shapers. She is also still currently serving as a gender advisor on the Women in Sourcing and Enterprise program, where she supports women's inclusion and mainstream youth and disability considerations across 26 projects. Across all our works, Oteheri brings a deep understanding of the political, cultural, and institutional dynamics that shape development outcomes in Nigeria, and the relationship building skills that will enable you navigate them effectively. So we are very, very happy to have Oteheri, not just for all that she has done across the policy development and agricultural space, but also for the impact that she has made with policy shapers as well. Thank you, Oteheri, for joining. And again, we have Comfort. Comfort is also one of the founding members of Policy Shapers. And just in case we don't know, Policy Shapers is, the entire idea of Rivers 2050 vision came out of Policy Shapers. So I'm saying Rivers 2050 vision is the baby of Policy Shapers. All right, so Comfort is one of the founding members, as I have said. She is a food systems and sustainability strategist with a decade of experience driving systems level transformation across public, private, and multilateral contexts. Her work spans food security, circular economy, and also policy strategy, with a focus on designing scalable, investment-ready solutions that strengthen resilience across food and environmental systems. She is the founder of Izano Africa Limited, where she leads the development of innovative models for climate smart agriculture, food waste and loss reduction, and inclusive financing. She is the founding executive director of CLICE Foundation, and I've said earlier, founding member of the Policy Shapers. So Comfort has advised governments, development partners, and industry actors, translating complex policy priorities into practical, high impact outcome. She serves on the IFAMA Young Board and as secretary of the Environment Committee at the United Nations Association of Australia, that's Western Australia. She has contributed to global platforms, including delivering a keynote at the UN World Food Forum. She is also an executive fellow of the Digital Economist, and she holds a Master's of Food Security from the Murdoch University, Australia, and an MBA in Sustainability and AI. I'm very, very certain that we are anticipating all that Comfort will bring to the conversation today, and we're happy to have Comfort on the call. We will now have Pamode Daniels. He is the founder and team lead at Exceptional Farms, a modern agricultural enterprise committed to advancing sustainable food production, promoting agricultural innovation, and inspiring a new generation of agripreneurs. He is a graduate of computer science. Pamode spent over 8 years in Nigeria's oil and gas industry, where he developed strong skills in building systems, operations, and also problem solving. Driven by a passion for agriculture and a desire to contribute meaningfully to the food security in Nigeria, he has transitioned into farming, bringing a business-minded and technology-driven approach to the sector. Today, he leads Exceptional Farms, where modern production techniques such as drip irrigation, fertigation, mulching, fertilizing, and precision farming are employed to improve productivity, conserve resources, and make farming more efficient and profitable. The farm currently produces high quality vegetables and staple crops, including cucumber, pepper, amongst others. We're happy to have Pamode share from the wealth of his experience on this call. And then we now have the delectable Udokanma Georgewill. She is a dynamic leader with over 13 years of experience at the intersection of technology, policy making, business strategy, and entrepreneurship. As a serial entrepreneur herself, Udo has founded multiple ventures that drive innovation, social impact, and economic empowerment. She founded Yemert, an agri-tech company tackling the vulnerabilities of smallholder farmers in Africa. And she does this by providing micro insurance and carbon credits to promote sustainable agriculture and farming. She is a thought leader in emerging technology and contributes to Startup Graveyard Africa, where she documents lessons from failed African startups. She also runs Divergent Edge, a newsletter exploring deep thoughts around technology, business, and growth strategies. Udo is also the chair of the Rivers 2050 Vision Book Committee, where they are doing very, very incredible work in putting together the vision book. This is going to be the second time Udo will be an expert on one of our FGDs. She also provided very, very expert ideas at our technology and innovation focus group discussion. We are delighted to have Udo back here with us to share from her wealth of experience. Welcome, Udo. And uh, finally, we have Aziz Salahu, who is a food system development practitioner and climate advocate with broad experience in mobilizing the youth for climate action, food and nutrition security, and also sustainable development in Nigeria. He's the founder and executive director at Community Action for Food Security. This organization is a registered non-for-profit that is committed to promoting a food secure Africa through efforts that support sustainable agriculture and enhance livelihood. Aziz currently serves as a national taxing member for the Nigeria Food Systems Transformation Pathway, where he coordinates all the youth engagements with the national convener in Nigeria, Food Systems Thematic Lead, NESG, an ambassador at the Climate 2020 conference, Hamburg, Germany. He's also a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation goalkeeper and a co-lead Future Work Africa. Aziz also holds a master's in sustainable crop production and is currently a PhD candidate. And this marks the end for our introduction of our experts, and we are very, very happy to have all our experts on the call. And we look forward to the very, very amazing conversations that we'll have on this session. So over to our moderator. So our moderator is supposed to be Obakam Tom Judge, but for some technical reasons, she couldn't join the call. So I will just continue the conversation right away. So once more, thank you to all our experts on the call and all the persons who have joined this conversation. This is a milestone for us at the Focus Group Committee because this marks the end of the entire Focus Group sessions. But importantly, this is also an important conversation in the grand scheme of things for what we want to achieve with Rivers 2050 vision. So I will just commence the conversation with the very first question. And excuse me. So this particular question is to all my experts on the call. And the question is, Rivers State is blessed with fertile land, rich waterways, and one of the most biodiverse environments in Nigeria. Yet with all of this, it imports most of the food that it eats. So what do you see as the single biggest reason the state has not unlocked its agricultural potential? So I want the conversation to begin with Comfort. So I want Comfort to unmute and share with us briefly. Thank you, Comfort. Over to you.
Did you start with me? Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. It's so good to be here. Thank you so much, everyone who has contributed to this journey so far. First of all, I would like to thank you on behalf of the policy shapers, and it feels so much at home to be on this panel with Terry, ZAL, and the other panelists. So, from my perspective and understanding of the data, because I've seen the data with regards to what's on ground, I also have field experience within the River State community and the Niger Delta region at large. So, for me, I would say that River State, yes, is blessed with fertile land, rich waterways, and has missed like its greatest miss is the miss of this opportunity is the absence of a clear strategic vision for the role of agriculture, because regardless of the land and the natural resources, so agriculture has largely been treated as a standalone, rather than and rather than a core engine for industrialization, economic diversification, resilience, like the oil sector. So the oil and gas sector has been at the forefront or has become the engine for decades, like we all know. So the missed opportunity lies in the lack of integration of agriculture as the engine for growth and economic development. So that dependency on oil and gas has actually made the made it impossible or near impossible for River State to see or unlock the agricultural potential of the state. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very fast and very accurate. So I will want Mr. Pamode Daniels to speak now briefly. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Mr. Pamode.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, yes, we can, sir.
Okay, okay. All right. So, thank you very much for having me. Thank you so much for the privilege to be on this call. And I want to also really appreciate the policy shapers for what you are doing. I took some time to go through the YouTube channel and see the past conversations and focus group discussions you've had, and in fact, I was wowed. So to answer your question, to go directly to the point, to answer your question about the issues regarding our access to land or the use of our land for agriculture, it's I would say first of all, it's because of, I would say there are a lot of factors. Let's start from there. But first of all, I think it's the mindset of the people. Right from time, like you said, we import food despite the fact that we have so much land, so much fertile land around. The thing is, from time, people have always believed that our crops, certain crops, don't do well in this part of the country. They believe that we should depend on the northern part of the country for our food. Yes, there may be reasons why food does better there, but notwithstanding, we can also use our land. So first of all, I'll say it's the mindset of the people. They have had that perception, maybe right from childhood, that farming should be done in the north, or crops don't do well here. For example, on my farm, we farm things like cucumbers, peppers, tomato, and all. And these are basically crops that we are usually brought in from the north. In fact, till now, they are still brought in from the north. We are still trying to compete with some of these people that bring these things because they are produced in large quantity there, probably because of the size of land they have and all that. And so people producing them here now, like when we started producing cucumbers, in fact, whenever people come to our farm and they see cucumbers, they are like seeing it for the first time in their life. They are like, oh, so this thing can grow here. Oh, we always thought they bring it from the north. When people saw tomatoes, they were like, oh, so tomatoes can grow in this part of the country. Oh, we always thought these things were brought from the north. So it starts with, I think, to solve this problem, I don't know whether we are talking of solutions or we are just talking about a problem. But I think to solve this problem, there has to be a reorientation first of the people to let them know that, come, these crops can also grow here. We have land, we have good land, we have arable land, we have fertile land that even does better than these lands in this place where these people are bringing these things from. So just make use of the land, get the proper knowledge, because that's the next thing. After the orientation, we now need to train the people, train the youths. For example, at my farm, Exceptional Farms, we embark on youth development. We train people, we train youths, we train young people, children, but we are mainly focused on youth though, on some of these crops, some on farming, real life farming practices like best agricultural practices, because most people are used to the way that farming was done in those days. For example, when I was coming into farming, I knew I had this passion because I grew up in the north. I grew up in the middle belt part of Nigeria, Plateau State precisely, and they used to do a lot of farming there. So I developed that passion from childhood. So when I moved back to River State, um, I discovered that most people here, they farm just basically cassava, and then a few people do corn and all those. And I asked, why are some of these things that are done there not done here? And I began to do my research. I began to do my findings. I discovered that sometimes it's because of the weather. Like, for example, vegetable crops, tomatoes, pepper, and the rest, they do better in areas where you have more of dry season, because they don't like humid regions. Like, they don't like if you notice the market trend, you see that in the rainy season the prices of these things go up. Why? Because in the rainy season humidity thrives, like, and fungal diseases are very rampant in the rainy season because um, fungi thrives in humid areas. So that is why most of the time they plant some of these things in the north, because they have longer dry seasons. But there are ways, there are methods that can be introduced here that these things can also grow here. You can plant them here and they will do well here. So I think the second thing is education. A lot of people need to be educated on the fact that farming is something that you can do and earn from, make money from. There are ways, there are new modern ways to do it. There are modern technologies that you can employ on your farm, that can make you farm here, and also make it not so laborious, not so labor intensive as people always think. So the over dependence on oil is also what has contributed, because if you ask an average youth from the Niger Delta, from Port Harcourt, what do they want to do? Most of them want to go into oil. Thank you. Okay, sorry.
Okay, thanks a lot. I believe that you have questions that we speak to this, so let's just go on to the other speakers. Thank you so much for your comments. They were spot on. Thank you. So I will hand over the mic to Zia. Zia, can you please speak now? Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. It's such a great privilege to be part of this conversation. It's nice to see Terry and then Comfort and every one of us on this platform. It's so nice to see you after a very long while. But I think I will just sort of build on what both Comfort and Daniel said. It is obvious that there is enormous opportunity for agriculture in the Niger Delta. Even the blind man can see it, can feel it. However, just like the question was asked, why is it that, or just like Comfort said, why is it that agriculture is not the mainstay? It's not the main conversation, or is not part of the conversation? So look at it from this perspective. Comfort talked about data, and it's very, very interesting. If you look at data, it solves a lot of our problems. For example, in Nigeria generally, agriculture contributes about 24% to our GDP. Oil and gas does relatively less. But when you look at the inflow that comes into revenue that comes into Nigeria from agriculture, it's about probably maybe 4.35%, as the case may be. Oil and gas does approximately probably about 70 or 80%. What does that tell us? We need to have intentional conversation around treating agriculture as a business, treating agriculture as a means that drive economic development, as a tool that drives development, not just as we are producing pepper, we are producing cucumber, we are producing carrots, we are producing this. Just like Daniel said, with innovation, with technology, soil is not a conversation any longer. We can produce what we want to produce anywhere, anytime. It's not an issue. But the main crux of the conversation is how intentional are we? What deliberate investment are we making in the Niger Delta to drive food production, to see food production as a tool to engaging young people? Just like Daniel also said, like I said, I'm going to just ride on what my colleague have already said. How are we educating people to understand the fact that agriculture is actually lucrative? Agriculture is beyond primary farming. There is value addition, there's processing, there's a whole lot of value chain. What intentional conversation are we doing around that? So just to add to what our moderator was saying initially, one of the major challenges we have in the Niger Delta is access to land to be able to produce food. Now, like Daniel said, up north, this investment has been made 50, 60 years ago. If we want to start today, we must have a deliberate policy, a deliberate plan around land bank. How can we make land accessible to farmers? We need to have conversation around it. Because if you look at our land, 80% of our farmland that we have, that we call arable land, they are still primary forests. So what are we doing intentionally to be able to open up that primary forest so that the cost of cultivating an hectare of land will not be very massive for the average farmer? Education is key, very, very important. But more importantly, I think we need a deliberate, we need to take action. I always use a phrase, talk is free. It's not cheap, it's free because anybody can talk. But the question is, what are we doing? What are we doing to ensure that the Niger Delta today can feed ourselves? Just look at the statistics. We're a population of about 46 million people. So it means that we have over $1 trillion economy when it comes to agriculture, what we can do. What intentional efforts are we making? How are we ensuring that young people are attracted into the system? What are we doing? We used to hear those days when we were much younger, school to land, young people going to farm, do this. What are young people going to do right now in the Niger Delta? What interests young people? A lot of young people find themselves in illicit conversation because they brand it to be very fashionable, very nice, and they just get involved in it. We need to brand agriculture differently. We need to talk about agriculture differently. We need to show what is working. I think for me, intentionality, action is very, very important. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Very well said. We need to brand agriculture way, way better. So I will hear from Udokanma now. Please unmute and speak. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Bira, for all that you do for the task force and for driving these discussions. And I'm really excited to be part of this last one because it speaks directly to what I'm currently spending, I guess, my years doing. Just to respond and to add to this first question, I'd like to think that, and also thank you so much to the points that the other speakers have raised. I'd like to think that the biggest reason that we have not tapped into the potentials that we have within the agricultural industry is because there's a faulty foundation. And as the Bible would usually say, that if the foundation is faulty, what can the righteous do? Usually will be encouraged to lean on God, which I think is what people in this industry are doing. And I'd say that faulty foundation connects to two key things. And please permit me if I am biased at any point, because those are the two key things that we're solving within this industry. The first one is protection against the risks that are pertinent in this industry, because I would not say that I blame a lot of people who are not exploring, agriculture as much as we should, especially because we're still stuck in, we're not even producing enough. Talk more of to extend to scaling, that commerce. So I'd say that people right now, because of maybe some sort of bad experiences that they've had, within their agricultural practice or farming practice, as we usually call it, are now much more scared or cautious, I'd say, to explore further. I'm talking from production to even processing and distribution or marketing. And so if there is one thing that I would say is perhaps the cause of that under exploration into commercialization, I would say that it is because there is an absence of risk protection, rather. The other one that is linked to that faulty foundation is that a lot of farmers are sitting on assets that they do not even know that they can benefit from, and that is around climate financing. You'd see that farmers who would explore planting tree crops or other crops, especially the ones that protect our mangrove, rather than the value of those crops that they're planting, they'll usually clear it to get firewood, or other things that they can make petty money from. Whereas there is a carbon market that is benefiting billions of dollars from it. And these farmers literally do not know what is going on, which again leads to education that one of the speakers talked about. So we need to do a lot around this, I guess, two key areas in terms of building further now on a faulty on this foundation that looks like it's faulty, or reviving now the faulty foundation. I don't know how best to put that. But yes, people are a lot more cautious, because now if a family who had a working capital to invest in their planting, eventually when something happens, they don't have anything to fall back on. And so rather than having the confidence to invest more capital into planting further, they're now thinking of, how am I going to how is my family going to survive, or how are we going to manage? And so that again affects production. If you're not producing enough, you cannot even extend to commercial scale. So yes, there really is a lot that we can do around, first of all, solving that's protection, or providing much more protection for farmers, because if they know that there is that coverage, then they have all the confidence. Because if any farmer walks into a bank, they are likely not going to give them any working capital to invest in farming, because it is a very volatile sort of industry, or the markets within the agricultural value chains are pretty volatile, and so it requires a lot of capital that you need, and that capital needs to be backed by some sort of protection. So if it's not there, then we don't even have a conversation on what do we plant, because yes, we know we have the right soil, we know that we have adequate land, so it now becomes a case of, if we don't have the investment to even produce, what then do we do? And this extends to also livestock farming as well. So yes, it connects to every other thing, which again comes back to the faulty foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well said. I particularly resonate with that. I think without coverage, just like you've said, it would be, we don't even have a conversation, because it is a very volatile industry. And so the people will have to be given some sort of cover so they can have the confidence and the backing to move forward with the industry. So thank you for that, Udo. I will hand over to Oteheri as she wraps up this session.
Okay, thank you, Bira. Thank you, everyone. I would like to stand on the existing protocol. Much appreciation goes to policy shapers, my colleagues, and of course, our collaborators as well. Thank you for the points that we've all made so far. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a very big fan, advocate of long-term development planning, right? And so for me, when I look at River State, when I look at the Niger Delta, it's not one single problem, right? It's a myriad of problems that culminates in a lack of vision, that culminates in arbitrary policies that are not followed through, especially in River States that are ad hoc, due to political reasons, which somehow has grounded the state. It's not for a want of policy direction, because if you look in history, recent history, you will see that there's been a lot of very great initiatives in the agricultural sector in River State, but you see that successive governments just override these things. And with agriculture, what really leads to sustainability is long-term development, right? If you look at financing agriculture, these are long-term because of the kinds of changes. It's a very dynamic sector. And so I would say that if we're able to get governance right, we will be able to get agriculture and other sectors right in River State. Thank you. Let me pass it all over to Bira. Bira, back to you.
Thank you. Very well said. If we get governance right, we are going to get every other aspect right. Thank you. Very well said. I agree with that, because just like Oteheri said, quite a lot have also been done for the agriculture sector, not just in Rivers, in Niger Delta as well, but quite a lot of challenges still exist that must be solved from the governance aspect as well. So thank you for that. I will want to continue with Oteheri. I want you to speak to what you've done. One of the things you've put in significant work for so far, which is on access to land in the Niger Delta, right? From your experience of over a decade, advocating for land access for agriculture across Nigeria, what is your advice to the Rivers State government and the Rivers 2050 vision at large on how to ensure land availability for agriculture, especially for a state with complex land ownership dynamics? And this is important because it sort of connects from where we just ended now.
Okay, so I will start by saying that when we are talking about land access in River State, we first need to all agree that the wetlands, the mangroves are part of the land that we are talking about, that we are looking at here. I think learnings from the work I have done in Nigeria, especially in the Niger Delta on access to land, is the need for state governments to map land, functional GIS systems. Many states have it, River State has it, but it is not being utilized and maximized, for the various sectors. And that is a problem, And so if River State, can really equip, that department, that unit, it will go a long way in helping everyone, investors, locals, to understand the various ecological zones in the state. And it's very diverse, for agriculture. With that kind of map, it will be easier for policymakers to know what to do, because policymakers don't have the tools to be able to make these decisions, So that would be the first
my first point of call. The second would be policy making. Zia talks about land banks. These things are things that needs to be done deliberately to shift us from the kind of ad hoc industrial agriculture, mostly subsistence, just household and everybody just struggling. It will be a big shift if those kinds of policies are in place. Because what's happening right now is that without those kinds of policies, their developers, every sector is kind of like trying to get resources for itself, right? So if we resolve the one for agriculture, tomorrow it will be education. We don't have land for schools, or we don't have land for hospitals, we don't have land for sports. And so there needs to be a deliberate drive to map out those land, to plan how River State would be, right? And then begin to drive in that line, along those lines. Again, I will also say that it is important in terms of land for River State to begin to put deliberate policies that can help it maximize its wetland. Because I feel like everybody's looking at cassava, oil palm, bananas. Nobody's really looking at what that area looks like. And when you look at the map of River State, you will find out that at least a quarter of it are wetlands, mangroves, that we don't really know what's going on there, because in terms of the revenues and the resources, it's not making its way into the public coffers, to account for GDP, to account for jobs in the state. A plan is going to really help the state to look at those kinds of things, right? And again, for those kinds of things to happen, the executive needs to be talking to the legislators. Once there is that kind of synergy, it makes it easier for these laws to go out. There needs to be a system and a structure that enables easy access and credit facilities for land. When commercial farmers and commercial agro-investors come into the state, there's a lot of problem. River State and land, there is a big problem. As in, they don't even mix. they don't talk to each other. It's like I don't understand. I schooled the University of Port Harcourt, and I don't want to call names, but like those of us that know the communities around the University of Port Harcourt, is a big problem. There needs to be policies where land can be easy to access for those who are interested, for those who are already doing it. Credit facilities to generally just support those kinds of initiatives. There need to be consensus. There need to be long-term leases. Look, Rivers people, it's as if land, they'll carry it to heaven, because it's like, it's our own, it's our culture, they're always fighting. What is it? Calm down and let us work together to ensure that these things can happen. People can come in, support the system. People can come in, grow this thing. Because the truth is, if you look, River State has been in the agro space for hundreds of years. Fishermen, farmers, you can't do it by yourself. You need support to be able to grow it, So to cap it all up, a policy drive to look into access of land, experts, subject matter experts, to map the various kinds of land and give to the government and advise them on how to allocate it. Credit facilities to make land easier for commercial agriculture within the state. I think I would stop with these 3 key points as a good place to start in terms of land access. I don't want to say land ownership because I don't want problems, but at least land access for commercial agriculture. Thank you.
Very, very spot on. Very, very well said. Thank you, Oteheri. Just to continue from where Oteheri stopped, where she talked about, the access to credit and also the idea of having investors come to support the entire agricultural landscape in River State. I'll take the conversation to Udokanma now, right? Who, with what she's doing at Yemert, with building the USSD first micro insurance and climate financing platform, simply because they had identified that one bad season can actually wipe out a farmer out entirely, completely, right? So to Udo now, how does financial risk protection, change a farmer's ability to invest, grow, and plan for the long term, and what would it take to make agricultural insurance accessible for farmers across River State? Because this is very important, that when the investors come in, we are able to, manage what they've given to us and grow into the commercial landscape that we are hoping to go to. So over to Udokanma now. I know she's spoken about this before a bit, but she will delve into now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bira. Yeah, I was just waiting for this time so that I could expand on some of the things I just mentioned at the beginning. And thank you so much for this question because it aligns directly with the burden that we have and that we're trying to solve across the country, across Africa, and it would really, I mean, touching in Nigeria also real estate inclusive. So we are really excited. But before I maybe jump into what can happen or what I guess what we can do to make now crop protection accessible, which is pretty much what we're already doing. I'd really just like to start with the math so that I think that now leads to the points I'm going to make. And that math starts with from the very beginning of a farmer's journey. Now there is a smallholder farmer in River State who would usually plant, their cassava or pepper in this case, just like Daniel, plants on his farm. And then they, you know, put in some money into getting seedlings, what you usually call inputs, and inclusive of labor, inputs also machineries, if it's a really big land size. What that farmer is risking at that point is not just taking care of the family, trying to get some financing for their school fees of the kids, and even the loan that they possibly would have taken to invest in a planting at the beginning of a planting season. But imagine for some reason there is heavy rainfall that eventually continues and leads to flooding, and after a while, that flooding again leads to a disease outbreak, as Daniel had just mentioned, that fungi as a disease thrives in humid areas. And one of the things that causes humidity is weather conditions like flooding. Imagine that same farmer who had cultivated their cassava or pepper in this case goes through that disaster. They're not just going to lose everything, they're going to lose the ability to even plant again the next season, perhaps at the same scale that they are planted, because there's just nothing left to reinvest in the next planting season. And so for us, that's basically what we're trying to solve, right? You find that farmers are running into serious debt season after season, cycle after cycle, and that is what keeps them in poverty. So building the platform, which is the USSD system, was pretty deliberate for us because we're also looking at accessibility. So if we're going to provide crop protection, how would the traditional insurance companies provide that protection to these farmers? Again, coming back to data, there are 33 million farmers across the entire country that do not have any sort of crop insurance. So that means that, picture 33 million farmers running into debts because most of that number would go to collect some money from their cooperatives to be able to finance every planting season in the hope that that season turns out to be a good season where they would not lose everything. Right. So accessibility was one key thing that we factored to say, hey, how do we change or redefine how agriculture or people exposed to agriculture? And that starts from the foundation, which is how do we protect now these farmers who continue to borrow money to invest in their farmlands and eventually, lose everything. So we decided to settle for the USSD technology. So just like how people in the creeks, in the rural settlements would usually get exposed to dialing a code on their phone to maybe buy airtime or buy get access to what, new banking. They could also dial the same code, and then they have access to crop insurance and also get access to climate financing. But then, as you know, that when these farmers now have access to that sort of protection, at least they have something to fall back on and they can recover if they eventually have a bad season. That really changes, their behavior when they want to plan for the next season. You see them, they're not really struggling. I mean, if a farmer has their money back after they lose everything from the previous bad season, at least when they're going into the next season, they're going into it with not that feeling of loss. Or yeah, I wouldn't say they're excited, right? Because nobody's excited after a loss, but at least they have something that they can invest in the next season, and they don't have to go and start looking for where they're going to borrow money from. At least they also have something that they can take care of their family, and they continue their lives. Anyway, so now back to accessibility, especially with River State, right? So I see three things happening, and these things are really basic. I mean, again, not to be biased. That hey, we're providing. We found how we could, solve part of this problem. It's quite enormous, right? And we're not going to. It's too much for us to handle. But at least we can provide a fraction of that solution to the problem. One of the three key things that would possibly happen is, getting an index-based product that would help, as opposed to the traditional loss assessments that insurance companies would usually do. For us, how we're able to do that is we collect data from we collect something called the farm intelligence from the space. So we tap into the satellites data that are available to be able to monitor how the farmers' planting seasons throughout their planting, and we're able to give them some intelligence in the case where there's likely going to be a risk. So in the times where there's now too much rain, we eventually warn them ahead of time that in this particular time there will be much more rain, so that they're able to at least manage their farming, or figure out what to do ahead of that time in case there's a flooding. There's also something really key that I mean, part of where I live is in Rwanda, and I've studied the economy, studied the structures that the country has put in place. And I see that one of the things that has helped them, or helped the agricultural industry and the rural economy, has been the government taking some level of ownership into how farming happens. And one of the things that they've put in place is an insurance scheme that takes care of 40% of the insurance that a farmer has to pay, and then the farmer eventually pays the remaining 60%. Nothing is stopping us from exploring that on a subnational level, where the government, I mean, there is also the national insurance scheme for Nigeria as well, which I hear takes care of 50%. But in terms of now gaining trust, I'm not sure we've put our money where our mouth is in that regard. So you hear the government come to tell farmers that, hey, there is, we'll cover 50% for you. But eventually when they pay that remaining 50% and something happens, now the government doesn't take, accountability or responsibility for covering now the claims that will help the farmer recover from that shock that they've gone through. And so now there's that broken trust with regards what the government says they'll do and what they will eventually do. I think that's typical across other industries anyway. Anything that happens with the government, there's always something somewhere that they're not fulfilling. But if this government wants to actually be invested in improving our food systems in the state, then there's that role in terms of premium subsidy that needs to happen. And it has to be well structured in such a way where if they're going to invest now perhaps in 50% of covering for crop protection for these farmers, then they also need to be able to contribute to towards now the payment in terms of, the claims when anything happened. But at the same time as well, there is one last thing that I'd like to mention is that with regards, aside having that safety net for these farmers to fall back in, another thing that the government can also I guess contribute towards accessibility for what's it called, for farmers and farming generally, agriculture. And maybe I've even been mentioning, just crops, just to also say that this extends to agriculture generally, including livestock as well. So it's not just, for farmers who are planting, but also for people. I remember even seeing in the past few weeks where there've been a lot of rainfall. I've seen livestock farmers who have also lost their fish ponds, lost their livestock due to the flooding in multiple states. So I'd like to think that also, aside covering for livestock farming as well, financial literacy is a big deal too. It's also what we are tackling as we go from state to state and communities to communities. We're investing a lot in education and helping these farmers also know how to keep the right books, know what they're investing, know what they're spending, know where they're getting the profits out of. And yeah, the last time that we had done a community outreach, we had gone with some of the financial partners that we were currently working with MTN and Airtel on their financing side. So we had gone with them, and we had also had them talk about financial literacy for these farmers, where now when the farmers want to buy insurance, it's easy for them to pay out of their mobile money. So that also helps with accessibility. So farmers do not necessarily need to take cash anywhere. With our USSS system connected to what's MTN and Airtel, a farmer can actually, all they need to do is to create their wallets and disperse some money in it. And if they want to pay for any premium plan, it's easy for them to just impute their mobile money pins, and that money is deducted, and they continue with their lives, and their premium is provided via SMS to give them more details on the period that they're being covered for. And if anything happens, they can also dial a code and give our team report on what really has happened, and then our team would access, using special technology, would access the level of the damage, and then will eventually know what compensation to provide to these farmers. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing in terms of accessibility, and then also what the government can also borrow as well to implement on their side. Because again, it's not just it's all stakeholders coming together to see how we can provide much more solution to improve what's it called, food production within the state. So it's a collaborative effort between the private sector and also the government. But yes, thank you so much, Bira.
Thank you so much, Udo. Very well said, and very, very incredible solution that you have for a major pain point for farmers in Africa. I think that was special. So I'll take the conversation to Zia now, who has spent over a decade working at the intersection of enterprise development and agriculture in the Niger Delta. He has done so well in supporting smallholder farmers, which is much of what we have in the Niger Delta. So to Zia now, from where you stand, what are the structural barriers that have kept River State farmers from moving beyond the subsistence farming, and what are some lessons that River State can learn from the ZAL Group. If you remember, we had said in the introduction, I had said that about 70 to 80% of the farmers in River State are all subsistence. So this will be a very important answer to be able to solve moving a greater number from this angle to the other angle. So over to you, Zia. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Trying to look at it from, like I think Terry said, it's not just one issue or one trouble that we're facing in River States or in Niger Delta as a whole when it concerns agriculture. If we're able to fix, like Terry mentioned, very important, governance, a lot of things to be addressed. However, I think one thing I've seen, sharing my experience like you asked, is that we need to treat agriculture as a business. I think some weeks ago, one of our big brothers, Aliko Dangote, said something about agriculture. He said agriculture is not for the poor. And a lot of persons were like, oh, this, that. But this is what I think it meant. I think it meant modern agriculture requires investments. Modern agriculture requires knowledge, requires technology, requires infrastructure, and also requires patient capital. Just like Udoka said, the last speaker said rather, Georgewill. Let me share an experience with you. In 2022, we had a major flood in the Niger Delta. We woke up one morning to one of our facilities in the Niger Delta here, and the flood has wiped away everything that we had. I meant beds. We lost thousands of beds in a day. Just like the last speaker said, a lot of farmers had that same challenge. And I will tell you the truth, a lot of them are not in business again. A lot of them are not in business again because they didn't just lose their investment in quotes. They lost the confidence of coming back to business. However, we are back in business. And I kept asking myself, why are we back in business in spite of these losses we had? Because it went across several farms. The truth is, every business has its own challenges. Every sector, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in entertainment, has its own challenges. When we start thinking agriculture from how profitable it can be, how profitable and how it can run as a business, you will encourage yourself and stay back. So one thing that is very important, like I said, is let's treat agriculture, modern agriculture, from the standpoint that it requires investments. It is not agriculture is not a tool for poverty alleviation, in quotes. We should stop treating agriculture from the standpoint that, oh, we want to support women in the rural communities. Let's send them to 200,000 naira. 200,000 naira cannot drive any meaningful agricultural conversation. That is the standpoint I think Aliko Dangote was coming from. It's a requirement, it's a system that required huge investment. So let's look at it practically. So let's say you want to produce pepper in Port Harcourt, for example. Your pepper facility in Port Harcourt, for example, should not be a farm, for example. It should be a processing unit where you add value to pepper. However, around and between the Port Harcourt vicinity and the local government around Port Harcourt, you should be able to have at least 2,000 farmers that knows that when they produce pepper, it is being of take somewhere in Romola in Port Harcourt or somewhere in Borokri downtown in Port Harcourt. So the farmer understands that there is a consistent market. So power is an issue. The government is going to address it, for example. But what are we doing differently for us in ZAL? We are intentional about the fact that for us to even produce food in River States and in the Niger Delta, we will have to have the conversation around building capacity for food production. The capacity for food production in the 21st century that we are in today is the requirement for food production rather is not the same as what was done several years ago. As at today, you now run farms with technology, with meters. You want to precision, let me use the word, right word, precision. It's now called precision agriculture. You don't just put a cassava in the ground and just expect it to grow and give you results. You know exactly what's going to come out per hectare, what is the yield you anticipate to come out. So the point is, if we are intentional about treating agriculture as a business, understanding the fact that it requires massive investment, massive technology, massive knowledge. We need to invest in knowledge. If we do all of that, you will see a gradual shift over a period of time. Then, like I said, invest in human capacity. Human beings are the ones that will drive agriculture. How are we selling agriculture to these young people, to this young generation? How do they see agriculture? So for us in ZAL, we are very, very big on building capacity for young people. However, as we build their capacity, we help them to see agriculture as a profitable venture. For it to be sustainable, it must be profitable. For agriculture to be sustainable, it must be profitable. If it is not profitable, it will stay for one cycle, and after that cycle, you will not be able to continue it again. So it is very, very important that we treat agriculture from this perspective. We build the right knowledge. More importantly, let me add one. Access to capital in agriculture is very important, but not every kind of capital. What we need is patient capital. Patient capital. To run agriculture, we need patient capital. Not what the bank is doing currently right now. So our financial institutions need to understand that they have to be partners in this conversation. You cannot be giving a farmer a credit and you're telling him to pay 24% in. It doesn't work that way. If there's too much sun have impact on the plants, too much rain have impact on the plants. We must understand all this conversation. So if we are intentional, like I said initially, this is a long walk to freedom, but it begins from the first step we have to take. Building capacity, understanding the challenges we are right now. We have competitive advantage, that is not an issue. In the Niger Delta and River State, we don't have opportunity issue. There's opportunity everywhere. We have maximization of this opportunity into something tangible. This opportunity can now create jobs. We can now start counting numbers. I so much love what the last speaker said. We need to make agriculture to be very easy, in quotes, so that people can participate without stress. From the click of your phone, you should be able to access insurance. From the click of your phone, you should be able to access credit. But you see, this is now also opportunity for young people to come into the agriculture, understanding that agriculture is not just farming. So you can build tech, you can build app, you can build systems that can afford farmers to have access to credit. However, the issue of data now coming. How do we even know this data? How do we even profile them? If you give them money, will they run away? That's where innovation comes in. So innovative agriculture goes beyond the farm. It goes into using technology to drive agriculture. It goes beyond using technology to enhance the processes. It goes beyond allowing young people to be able to develop in their pace with what they do and how it can add value to the food system. So the food system is not a farm conversation. It's a system conversation where we allow everybody to grow. So there's a lot we can say. There's a lot we are doing, but there's still lots more we can still do. We need to be intentional about driving food. Because I tell you, I use an example. I brought a pepper. You see this pepper in my hand? This pepper is not just something we eat. This pepper creates jobs. This pepper builds productive business. This pepper creates better and sustainable community. This pepper drives technology. If only we know what we can do with a piece of any plant, whether plant or animal. So agriculture, it's a, I don't know, it's a sector that we just have to be intentional. I think the word is intentionality. And if we all stakeholders come together, private sector, policymakers, every stakeholder, the government, come together. We cannot achieve it in 1 year and 2 years. It's a long walk to freedom, like I said. But it's going to be that every year, every day, we are making a deliberate effort to ensure that that sector is developed. That is when we can now reap the benefits that comes with agriculture, and we can see it in the streets of Port Harcourt. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zia. That was passionately said, passionately delivered, and I also love the fact that you mentioned that there is an open opportunity for young people to get into agriculture in Rivers State, right? To take us further on that, we'll now hear from Pamode Daniels, who is a trailblazer himself. He represents a generation of commercially minded and structured farming operations in Rivers State. So to Pamode, what has it taken to build a farm that is viable, scalable, and attractive to young people? And what needs to change for more young people in Rivers State to go into the agribusiness in the coming years? So let's now hear from Pamode Daniels. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll just build on what Mr. Zig, the last speaker said. What does it take for young people to come into agriculture? For example, I started agriculture commercially in 2021, 2022, thereabout. In fact, I started small and then gradually grew. But one thing that has kept me going is like he said, the fact that you are seeing the potentials that are in this thing. Someone talked about data. Someone talked about statistics, about what agriculture is driving, the GDP that agriculture is bringing into the country as against oil and gas. In the introductory remark I made, I said most people in the Niger Delta feel, or most youth, if you ask an average youth, what do you want to do? They want to go into oil and gas, but they don't know that they don't know the potentials that lie in agriculture. I gave a talk sometime last year on growing to scale. And I said something about the fact that I talked about the opportunities that lie in agriculture. So I think, first of all, for what can be done, like someone mentioned, is education. First of all, the young people need to be educated that there is potential in these things. Now, most of the young people are used to their idea of agriculture, or their idea of farming is the crude method that they've always known, like the hoe and the cutlass type of farming and all that. And they don't know that there are new technologies that can be applied to make the process better and easier. Like the last speaker talked about, he said there are opportunities. He talked about some new technologies that could be used. For example, people feel when you talk about commercial farming, people see it as it has to be big, it has to be all that. Now, to blow your mind, sometimes when the right processes are not put into place, you end up wasting time, you end up wasting money, you end up wasting space. For example, do you know that what the returns someone can get from a plot of land can be compared to what some people will get from 6 plots, because that person employed some small tweaks, some little technologies. For example, let me use one as an example. I talked about the fact that people feel agriculture is seasonal. They feel you plant only when rain starts falling that you say, okay, farmers should go to the farm. But agriculture is an all year round thing. It's something that can be done all year round, just little improvements here and there. For example, irrigation, use of irrigation for farming. Most farmers, even those that are practicing farmers, some of them don't know about efficient ways that irrigation can be done. Most of them feel you get a hose, get a water source and water. There are better ways that some of these things can be done.
Okay, so I think Pamode's network is acting up. Just please confirm you can hear me, so I'm sure it's not from my end.
It's something that can improve your most times.
Okay.
Most times.
Welcome back, sir.
Yes, thank you. Just like you just get water, you just get a water. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. You can please.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. Let me just wrap up quickly.
Thank you.
So a lot of times, the drip irrigation I was talking about, it's something that can be used to improve your productivity by 70%, for example. It's a technology that was invented in one of these countries, I think Israel, where they have in fact, it's a desert. I think 70% is desert and all. And they thought of how water can be conserved and still arrive, how do I put it now? Still achieve great results. The last speaker talked about precision farming. That is one of the things that it still boils down to the education thing. Young people need to be educated on some of these things that can make farming less laborious. In fact, that is one of the things I'm passionate about. I try to make farming look very attractive. I try to make it look like it's not something that has to be so cumbersome. So the other day, I shook hands with someone and the person was like, you say you're a farmer, your hands are so soft. How come you are farming and your hands are not strong and all that? And I was like, people still have that perception about farming that it has to be the person it's suffering. I think that's the perception people have. And like the last speaker said, there are a lot of things in the value chain. In fact, farming is an entire value chain on its own. The production is like the least. You have processing, you have storage, infrastructures. People can come up with infrastructure. You have problems of their peak seasons and lean seasons, for example. Someone that focuses on that alone, try to make this thing available at all times. Why is it that at some points, pepper is so cheap? You buy so much pepper for 500 naira, and then later on, you get 4 pieces or 5 pieces of pepper for 500 naira. Why? Because we don't have good storage facilities. We don't have good infrastructure. So some of these things can be put into consideration, and people should be there should be more orientation on the opportunities that lie in farming, so that more people can come in. And even those that are already practicing farmers need to be re-educated. Some of them need to be reorientated. I remember somebody asking me, why do you spend so much money to install drip irrigation on your farm and mulching? Why don't you just pay people to weed? And I tell them, with these technologies, one person can manage a very large portion of land without having to bring in so many people. And if everybody does this, you discover that you have so many people in agriculture and a lot being covered, like a lot of the goal is food security. You have a lot of people producing, and then there's enough to go around, because it's really telling, because the few people that are into it, the burden is on them. If we bring in more people into this thing, in fact, there's enough room for everybody to come in. Agriculture is a sector that, if it's well exploited, it will lift up the GDP of the country and the state especially. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very well said. I could tell that you were speaking from so much depth of experience. Thank you for sharing with us. I particularly love that you shared that agriculture doesn't need to be laborious. It doesn't need to look laborious or look old-fashioned. And if we can just have systems that make it easier, more young people are going to join agriculture sooner or later. So thank you. So having heard from all of this, we now look to Comfort, who herself has studied food systems at a global level, and she has also engaged in global food policy at the United Nations and FAO. And to Comfort now, what does a genuinely resilient, inclusive, and sustainable food system uh, for Rivers State look like by 2050? And how would you design this blueprint? Over to the delectable Comfort. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. That's an interesting question. I'd like to build my response on the different things that the different panelists have shared. I'll use them as the pillars for my response. So first of all, I'll start by saying that so resilience is not about bouncing back, right? It's about absorbing shocks, disturbances, reorganizing and adapting. So the ability of river states to adapt, first of all. And then in terms of inclusivity, I would say that it's a holistic utilization of natural and human resources in a sustainable manner, because your question is how does a genuinely resilient, inclusive, and sustainable food system for river states look like? Like, what will it look like by 2050? So sustainability from the point of view of the ability of river state to have an adaptive food system that would not compromise the ability of the state to feed its future generation. So my blueprint would begin with what we are already doing, creating a vision for river states, by the Rivers 2050 vision, right? So this is what it looks like. So for me, I would say, let me pick one of the pillars, which is comparative and competitive advantage that ZAL talk about, or Zigha. So when he was talking, I was just nodding my head, because the truth is that, so the vision for River State, or the blueprint, should not just be one that is should not be a river state that has like sufficient food production, but it has to strategically look at its competitive advantage both in crop and livestock. So we already know that river state is known for fisheries and aquaculture, or the what's it called, seafood. So now, shifting from what I mentioned initially, the overdependency on oil and gas. So given its geographical location, so it has a comparative and competitive advantage in the sense that, so the other speaker talked about desertification in Israel, where the deep irrigation system was introduced. And river states, as its name connotes, rivers, has, body of water. So water is not an issue, or neither is water conservation. So within the context of building a resilient and a sustainable or inclusive system, so I would say that it should have systems in place that support the different food chain within its area of comparative and competitive advantage. Because in the food system, or within the food chain, when a part is broken, the system and the chain becomes dysfunctional, if you understand the structural functional theory. But not to sound too technical, so I would say that, so rather than producing everything, this state should specialize in where its strength lies. In commodities, it can be palm oil. So it also takes my mind back to we've had so many declarations. I don't know if anyone on the call has been following. We've had the Malabo Declaration, the Maputo Declaration, like so many declarations, and there've been this concession among African states to dedicate at least 10% of its budget reallocation to agriculture and food security. So the question is, does Rivers State currently, as is, have a budget that is up to 10% for agriculture and food security? Because you cannot build a sustainable system or an inclusive system, food system for Rivers State without the required financial resources. So we're looking at not only financial resources, because but the truth is everything is still anchored on that financial resources, because that's only when we can activate the potential of the natural resources like the land, and like ZAL said, or Zigha, sorry. I call him ZAL. He's the CEO of ZAL Group, right? So he was talking, he said something that soil is no longer a problem, so that with technology, even if you're complaining of the impact of climate change on food production, with technology, you don't necessarily have to grow your food on soil. We understand clearly what the challenges have been, especially within the oil community, where there's been pollution of the land. And I know that there's a lot of cleanup activities going there. So I have to touch base on that, because we're looking at a resilient system. The ecosystem, the food system and the ecosystem entirely has already been disturbed. There's a disturbance by oil pollution, right? So if soil is no longer a problem, it means that that community still has an opportunity to cater to its own need. But now, holistically, looking at the river state and a blueprint that would be workable, that would be sustainable and resilient for the state. And for me, I would also say, because policy shapers or the River State 2050 Vision Group has started working on this, I will intentionally like for River State to play a critical role in the Nigerian food system, so that from that, because Nigeria has a national food plan and strategy, which also fits into the African Union 2063 plan. So if we start creating a blueprint that takes all of this into consideration and connects the dots, you realize that there is a huge potential, like Mr. Zigha had already mentioned. So agriculture is not limited to food production only. There are other activities. He showed us the pepper, and I love the fact that he brought pepper to this session. It's a job creation. Yeah, it's a tool for job creation. And then there are other chains beyond primary production. There is also value addition. So imagine that River State has a blueprint that positions the state not only to feed its population today or in the future, but keys into the African Continental Free Trade Agreement or the African Union Plan, such that beyond oil, that also becomes a source of revenue and job creation for its population. So another pillar I would like to look at, I mean, the other speaker had already spoken about climate resilience when she was talking about insurance. It's a space that I had previously played in deeply, the insurance space, the agricultural insurance space. We understand that agriculture is a high risk investment area and a low appetite sector for investors. The truth is that the current state of the insurance industry as is, it's really difficult, because I understand that sector. One of the gap I have identified personally based on field experience and interaction with the stakeholders is not just leveraging technology to distribute insurance to farmers using SMEs or whatever. I'm happy to hear that, like, the regulations currently support that level of accessibility for farmers. The problem is a design problem. So a lot of agricultural insurance products today, even the climate risk insurance, have been modeled after the non-life insurance products. So if you look at them critically and the policies within the agricultural insurance, the different agricultural insurance products, they are not designed typically to address the basic, challenges that the farmers face. It takes just peripheral consideration of these risks. So there has to be a deliberate effort for the insurance sector and the stakeholders within the agricultural sector, including farmers, to place a demand on the insurance sector, either the regulators or the players themselves, to redesign the existing policies, because it's one thing for farmers to adopt an insurance product through SMS or whatever platform that they are using to access insurance, but it's another thing for them to understand the policy of that insurance product, or even the type of product they have picked, because farmers could actually pick, let me say, an index insurance, and they are expecting claims or compensation for a multi-peril, insurance product. So that's very important, and it speaks to the role of education. So now I also like to talk about governance and data. So we cannot manage what we do not measure, right? So River State need a food system that, like, it needs a food system intelligence platform that is able to provide real-time information on production, food prices, post-harvest losses, climate risks, and investment opportunity. Until we incorporate that into the strategy or the vision for River State, we may not be able to build a resilient food system, or even an inclusive and sustainable food system. So that's the blueprint I would say this exercise should take into consideration. So ultimately, my vision or my blueprint for River State by 2050 it should be one that no longer measures the success of the food system by how much food is produced, but how resilient the food system is in terms of its ability to, withstand and absorb the shocks, create improved nutrition and protect the natural ecosystem of the state while preserving the livelihood of the people, because with all of this climate risk comes displacement of the livelihood of the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very elaborate and very well said. So I would want to continue with Comfort in 1 minute. If you had $1 million to invest in agriculture in River State, what would you do with it in 1 minute, and why? Thank you.
Okay. I didn't say that correct. So, if I have $1 million to invest, yeah. So, I would actually, because, okay, I'll still make reference to what one of the speakers said about building a system. So for me, if I have $1 million, right, I would invest it on building a market system, like an architecture that makes farming profitable for all, because yes, we have a lot of smallholder farmers in River State. We have their subsistence farmers, but it's time to begin to see them as commercial or value creators, right? Within that food system. So for me, is to build a system that supports their activities, regardless of the size of their farming, whether small or large scales, meeting them at the point where they are and bringing them up to the next notch of the food hierarchy, or, creating a framework that introduces new key actors or strengthen the existing relationship across the food chain. Thank you.
That sounds so technical, but thank you for thank you for your very, very expert ideas, and Wise words. Thank you once again. So I will ask Udo to speak now. If you had $1 million to invest in agriculture, I know you're already playing in the space, but what exactly would you do with $1 million in agriculture in Rivers State?
This question is coming really at a really essential time when we're even like we're raising our first $1 million anyway. So I'm not sure we're going to throw that into River State alone because it connects across, the work that we're doing around Africa. But if I were handed that kind of money for River State in particular, I think rather than focusing on smaller chunks of things, or sorry, smaller, interventions, I possibly would put, I guess, two chunks in maybe 50% of it into around two areas. The first is possibly something that the state has not explored, or maybe Nigeria has not explored enough, and that is um more like a carbon aggregation center. I think that there's a lot of money that's the country and possibly the states is losing from the carbon economy, and I would like that it is very much explored, especially for smallholder farmers as an additional source of income. I mean, we're doing the bits that we can, but like I said, the problems within the industry is not for one player. It concerns, everybody. So I would put 50% of that into putting together like a state-based, carbon aggregation pilot that smallholder farmers can walk around. You can also find, smaller cooperatives across different local governments who have suitable and eligible land that they can use to explore agroforestry and all of those sustainable practices that can contribute or that can bring in much more income for that would be distributed to smallholder farmers. I think this would really benefit the states in general, and more so smallholder farmers, which again is where I'm really concerned, so which is who I'm concerned about. The remaining one will perhaps be put into some sort of blended finance that would ensure that finance gets to the last mile, which obviously are the smallholder farmers, to just support with training, especially community-based agents that would help farmers to enroll in multiple things, help farmers to enroll in credit facilities, enroll again in the carbon infrastructure that will be set up, and also any other technology that is available to farmers. Again, there's smart irrigation. I remember somebody on the panel talking about it. So many farmers do not know how to, or the best methods of irrigation, and now there are smarter irrigation technologies. There is also, again, markets that support with distribution. We have a marketplace where farmers can literally list and sell their produce using our USSD technology. So that also contributes to the finance infrastructure that will pretty much be investing in, where farmers have access to financing for inputs, financing for machinery, financing for whatever it is that they need at a very, very low interest rate. And they can easily have, rather than what's giving them obviously the money directly, we can, partner with other input providers and pay the money directly to them, and then have them distribute those inputs or whatever it is that the farmer needs to complete successfully a farming season, and doesn't lose money from that farming season. But yes, these two key things are things that I would put my money in any day. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. You talked about the inputs and financing. This is also a very critical part of agriculture, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So let me hear from Pamode Daniels in 1 minute. What will $1 million do for exceptional farms in Rivers State?
Wow. Okay. Since you started asking that question, I've been thinking, because there are 1,001 things I'll do with $1 million in agriculture. But I think I will consolidate a lot of farmers together. One of the problems we have is smallholder farmers. Why I said it's a problem is because you have this person doing his small thing here, this person doing his own small thing here, this person doing his own small thing here. And that is one of the problems we generally have as Africans. Everybody wants to do small things here and there. If we consolidate together, we can grow something very big. For those of us that know Songhai farms in Port Harcourt, in Rivers State, not Port Harcourt, in Rivers State, if I had $1 million, I would do a replica of something like that. And I will bring in several farmers. Okay, in short, I will build a farming resort, not just for farmers, but for people that want to there's this thing they call midlife crisis. Something about natural environments where such around, especially in this part of the country. So I will set up a resort where people can come for several things. Therapy, if you need natural therapy, if there's anything like that, just be in a natural environment and all that. And then also it will serve as a means of empowerment, because definitely building a farming resort, it's going to be something that everything is going to be integrated. Like you have your crops, you have your animals, you have the crops are used, the animals are used to, okay, everything just supports itself, like an integrated farm where you have animals, crops, fishery, and all that. And then you also see how we can also benefit the environment around us. For example, I know of a farm in Port Harcourt here, that a poultry farm that supplies the whole street light. How do they do it? They generate something called biogas from their poultry manure, and they supply lights to the whole. They generate, I think it powers a turbine or something, and they supply light to the whole street. Like everybody around there uses free power. Now, these are things farming can do. And if you give me $1 million, these are some of the things I will exploit. I will explore, sorry. But generally, a farming resort, that's what I will do. Thank you.
Very well said. Very apt. Thank you so much. Let's now hear from Ayibakuro Zia as he shares what he can do with $1 million in Rivers State.
You see, I was laughing when Daniel was talking.
The last speaker really struggled to mention your name.
My name is Zia, Z-I-G-H. Okay, I was laughing because $1 million, if you convert it, that's 1.4 billion naira at an exchange rate of 1,400 naira. I don't know the market rate as of today. So $1 million is not a big money in agriculture. I've always said this. We cannot invest $1 million in a $5 trillion economy and expect the magic to happen. However, I just say that to buttress the point that you understand that the requirements investment for agriculture is massive. It's not what $1 million, you might not see, you might not get a significant impact if you do $1 million, for example. However, if you give me $1 million, you see these documents in my hand. So we have, for comfort, for example, you mentioned something that you like the fact that I came with a pepper. No, I'm in the farm. This is the office in the farm. So I just decided to come to the farm to have this conversation. So we have a ZAL food system that we are building. I've been talking to Comfort. I'm going to learn from her. So if you give me $1 million, I'm going to execute this project. And what does this project entail? It's simple. Building a functional food system for not just Port Harcourt now, but for the entire Niger Delta. We are over $1 trillion economy in agriculture, far over. I can't give the exact number. But you see, what will make this system very functional is when we understand that, like everybody said, farmers needs to be aggregated. That will mean that logistics is going to be a very big conversation when it comes to agriculture. Cold storage needs to be a very big conversation when it comes to agriculture. Processing needs to be a very wonderful conversation. However, there's one part that I feel that we need to be intentional about also. When we talk about seeds, when we talk about inputs generally, you realize that the inputs that we use in agriculture comes out of the region called Niger Delta. We hardly have seed companies, we hardly have feed companies, we hardly had some of these companies at a certain scale that can produce for us. So that's why I said $1 million, fine, it sounds nice, but when you put it inside the business, you might not just see anything out of it. However, this is what I would say, what we need for River State or for the Niger Delta is consistent investments in various value chain over a period of time, consistently. Then we can now start seeing results. Don't peg it to an amount, but it's going to be consistent. Just like I think Comfort said that we've had the Malabo agreement, all those conversations, invest 10% of your budget in agriculture. If those investments are consistent and access to finance becomes liberalized, that a young person with an innovative idea to put in 5 billion into agriculture can access that money without asking for too much dramas and all that, you realize that the sector will open up in a 5-year time, in a 10-year time. You realize that River State will become a hub for food production. So just to answer you directly, $1 million is nice. Yes, I agree. But the sector needs consistent investments to grow. Thank you so very much.
Interesting. Well, if I can put everything you said into one sentence, we prefer consistency. That's continuous investment over a one-time thing. And this makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for this advice. And then we now move to Oteheri, who ends this particular question. So Oteheri, over to you. Before Oteheri, I must thank everyone who has remained on the call. I know we've overshot our time by a bit, but we'll be wrapping up soon. This is almost the end of the session, right? So let's now hear from Oteheri. Thank you for standing by and for staying in the meeting.
All right, thank you. You know, when I listen to the conversation, especially on this last question, what I hear is someone who has multiple talents. And then, you know, there's a little bit of confusion. What should my career path be? Because this person can do so many things. And that's kind of like the problem of River State and many other states in the Niger Delta and Nigeria. We have so many resources and we're struggling. Which ones do we prioritize? I think that River State has so many of those, right? And with a capital investment, I think my recommendation would be to zero in on a competitive advantage. What are those things that River State already is known for? What are those agricultural sectors that River State, you know, without any support, the people, the businesses are already making a profit from, and then deepen that value chain all the way from the smallholder farmers to the exporters. Deepen it and bring in more technology, bring in more access to finance, you know, support from the access to land, community engagement, inclusion, support all of that and grow that competitive sector. And let it be a flagship that River State can show globally and say, see, we're doing this. In whatever the agricultural experts will agree on, that let's start with this, let's pilot this. And I think that with that kind of capital investment, that would be what I would recommend that kind of fund should be used for. Split in smaller percentages across a value chain that has competitive advantage in the state. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very well said. And I'll continue this very last question with Oteheri. I think this is one of my favorite parts of FGDs. And considering that this is our very final FGD, this has to be very special to me. So this is a question we ask every expert, all the over 50 plus experts we've interviewed. And the question is, what is the rivers of your dreams, and where or what do you envision for the state over the next 25 years? So I'll start with
All right.
Oteheri.
So yeah. So very quickly, my vision for rivers, and I think I've been asked this question before on this platform, and it still remains a river state where successive governments will be willing to implement the development agenda that we're currently pushing, right? Because this is a citizen-led long-term development plan. This is not government, ad hoc governments, or current governments. This is citizen-led. This is the people thinking through what should River State be like. So my vision for River State will be successive governments looking into this plan, building on it, taking it in bite sizes and implementing it, and then let River State become that hub of industrialization, industrial development. Let it be that flagship state. Let it be that garden city. Let it be that word book. What's the word from Coco now? That that word book center that it was. Because I hear us talk about education, we talk about other kinds of development, access to finance. Let it become that place where others will want to come as an industrial revolution. So they will come to do tourism in River State because of the transformation, the development that will be seen in the next 25 years. They will come and ask, how did you do it? We are bringing experts asking them, how did you do it? So if we are able to implement this plan, I would like to see a River State that becomes that blueprint for development, a state development led by its citizens that becomes, that kind of framework. Thank you. Back to you, Bira.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Oteheri. That was a wonderful one, a good way of wrapping your session. I will hand over to Pamode Daniels now. What is the river state of your dream, and where do you envision the state in the next 25 years? So over to you, Pamode. Are you still on the call?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Sorry, I had the part of what's the river state of your dreams, but I didn't hear the second part, please. I think my network kicked me out a bit.
Okay, so the question is just, what is the river state of your dreams, where you envision the state in the next 25 years? In a minute. Thank you.
Okay. All right, okay. So the river state of my dreams is like the last speaker said, a garden city, because I really love River State to be the hub for urban farming. I'm really an advocate for urban farming, where I feel every household should have at least a farm in their backyard. If you don't have a backyard, do it on your roof. There are countries where people farm on the rooftops. There's rooftop farming. In fact, today I saw a picture of a plantain growing on a roof. And I want River State to be that place where every 5 minutes walk, you have a farm, like a greenhouse, a green farm, whatever. But just like, let it be that the River State is a place where wherever you go to, you'll find fresh food at every turn. You don't eat stale food that comes from another part of the country, that before it gets here, the tomatoes are soft and the peppers are getting rotten and all that. Want River State to be the place where you get fresh foods at every turn. So a farm every 5 minutes walk, and a farm in every neighborhood. That's the River State of my dreams. And then aside agriculture, a clean state, because I also love the issue of recycling. It's one of my passions too. And that's why I'm talking of a consolidated farm, like where everything is recycled and all that. So I would like Rivers State to also be a hub of second-hand value. Like everything should be everything should have a second value. Like we should have lots of recycling. We should not have there should be little or no waste, because we have so much, and most of it goes to waste. So if things are put back into the society, put back into the system, we generate more and we waste less. So those are the two areas rivers of my dreams should be clean river states where things are recycled and there's a farm every 5 minutes walking distance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very well said. That was apt. So I will hear from Udokanma now. I know you've also said the rivers of your dream in the last FGD you joined, but we can never stop. We can never get tired of hearing this from you. So let's hear from Udokanma. Hi, Udo. Are you still on the call?
Okay, sorry. No, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I would just say that, I mean, we have the vision book that we're trying to implement or create a few legislative bills that will hand over to the House of Assembly. So please, as you mentioned, the river state of your dreams, please know that we're going to put all of that together, and you may actually see it, passed into law in the next couple of years. Fingers crossed. But basically, and again, not to sound biased, because that's really what our vision with our company pretty much looks like, and it just comes from a place of ensuring that we start to encourage more production, I suppose, consuming what's every other food sources, consuming from every other food sources, but we should start to become producers rather than importers, so that other people. And I'll give you a typical example. Last year we had this sorry to digress. Last year we had this two instances. The first one was with the partnership with this cocoa company that translates or that processes cocoa into chocolate. And from last year to this year, there's been some policy that has come from the government side, where now they're not exporting cocoa. And I in fact, when we had that collaboration with them last year, I also was looking at the available data around, which I used to think that cocoa comes from the southwest alone, until I was made to understand that the south, basically the Niger Delta, is the second largest producer of cocoa, and Cross River and Akwa Ibom. And to also see that, or learn that the first commercially cultivated cocoa was from Boni, which happens to be in River State. So I'm looking at that time up till now. How did we go from being the most scaling cocoa to I don't know what the data is right now, but now this is where it's supposed to benefit the state the most, because now the government has banned the exportation of that food produce. So we have the land. I don't think that the soil changed at any point, right? We have, all that it takes for that crop to be produced and distributed across the entire country for people like these companies who do a lot of chocolate manufacturing or other chocolates, produce. Also, Daniels had talked about food waste. I also just recently learned that the bones of cows or even some animals are now used in the bioeconomy to create dishes, like ceramic dishes. So imagine all the foods, all the bones that are leaving slaughter markets or all those other markets. Imagine them being explored into other commodities that we can actually use. So waste conversion into produce that are exportable materials or commodities would really help a lot, which is why some of these policies need to be in place. So I basically just want a state that would stop importing the majority of food that we eat, especially from other parts of the country, when we can actually grow those foods ourselves, because we have one of the most fertile and biodiverse lands in the country. Also, with regards to young people seeing agriculture as illegitimate or something that they can fall back on, because just like entrepreneurship, people think that if they can't get a 9 to 5, then they start entrepreneurship when they don't even have any background, understanding of how business works. So that's basically how some young people see agriculture, as if they don't find a 9 to 5, they go and look for where to, get a piece of land and they can start to cultivate. So we need to do a lot more to encourage young people that agriculture is a viable business, and also to other policy makers and investors and other stakeholders that agriculture is a viable business that you can put in your money and you can get some good returns from. So yes, basically that's what I'm looking forward to the next 25 years for the state in terms of agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Udo. That was very articulate. So we hand over to Ayiba Kuro Zia now.
For me, I will literally say to see a state where we have young people driving productivity. People get rewarded for adding value to the system based on values they can create. What Udokanma said just now just got me thinking. She talked about cow bones, and because for me, I'm always looking out for opportunities that we can create that young people can take advantage of to run profitable businesses. See, if it is not profitable, it is not sustainable. So when young people get handouts from any sort of patronage, when it's political patronage, they get handouts, it's not sustainable. So they are now at the mercy of who is giving them that handout. Whatever they tell them to do, that's what they do. So you now start seeing a state or a region where people argue blindly, talk blindly, not because of they like what they are talking about, but because they just need to survive. So in the bit of trying to survive, they just do anything for survival. But if we see a state that is filled with young people that are productive, that are creating value, exceptional values, and they are getting return on the value that they create, then we can see successful and productive businesses. Then it can now translate to successful and productive and sustainable communities. Our communities are a hub of opportunities untapped. You just mentioned Bonny. Go to Okrika, go to Buguma, go to all the communities in Rivers State. You won't drive for 5 minutes without seeing opportunities everywhere in our rural communities. Ask yourself, why is there a high number of rural-urban migration? Why are people running from rural communities to Port Harcourt City? In quotes, why? It's because the resources in those communities remains on tap. And until we turn our communities to become productive by the activities of young people. So for me, I just want to see a productive River State, a productive community where value is being rewarded. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very well said. Very well said. So I'm happy to ask Comfort to speak. We started the conversation with Comfort, and I'm very happy to end the conversation with Comfort again. So
Terry has not spoken.
No, she has.
Terry has not spoken, so Terry will be ending the conversation.
But I spoke first, Comfy.
You're not missing this, Terry.
Terry started the conversation, actually.
I started.
Okay. Oh, you did. Oh
Yes,
my God,
over to you,
okay.
Coach. You're not getting away with this. All
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 right.
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 I
Thank
want to
you.
hear you again, Terry. So, yeah, so the river state of my dream is one that, rebrand, or I don't know if I would say rediscover its identity, not just on Nigeria's, not just as Nigeria's energy capital, but a global model for sustainable, inclusive, and resilient food system. So I envision a river state that, its natural resources are no longer extracted at the expense of the future generation of river states or Nigeria, but managed alongside a thriving agricultural and food system, a blue economy, innovation across manufacturing and circular economy, as mentioned by the previous speakers. So I would like to see River State become the food processing, logistic. So logistic in the sense that it has its natural resource, the water body. How can we put that to use? How can we make it, a major pathway for transportation of food across connecting the different regions of Nigeria and even outside the country, not just importing, into the country, as well as climate innovation hub for, West Africa, given its unique ecosystem. So I would like to see a river state where, or my vision for the state is a state where young people see agriculture as a technology and business driven industry rather than a last resort like, okay, we don't have anything to do, let's resort to agriculture. So I'd like to see a community that is healthier than it is today, where the ecosystem are resorted and, like the urban farming. I love the fact that Promise, is it Promise or Daniel? What's his name? The
Yeah,
other
yeah.
speaker. Yeah, where
Pamode
he
Daniels.
said,
Yeah.
yeah, he would like to see the garden city. So imagine walking across River State and you're able to pick fruit from the road and just, eat that fruit. There's enough water. You can just wash it by the tap or somewhere and just eat. Communities are able to share meal. Maybe there's a community pantry to reduce food waste, and that would actually strengthen cohesion within the River State community. And most importantly for me, a state that is resilient in the sense that regardless of the economic or climate shock, it's able to readjust, reorganize, and continue to thrive. Because for me, I believe that when we have all of that, certainly, regardless of even the global, what's it called, the disruption in the by the global crisis, it's actually affecting River State. So if River State becomes self-sufficient and is able to sustain the Nigerian population, for instance, you realize that beyond economic growth, that the state would leave the next generation more thriving, prosperous, more secure, and for the people than it was. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Comfort. Thank you for closing the conversation in such a good way. So I will thank every participant of this conversation, this FGD, from the very first FGD that we had down to this 17th one. We are happy to have had you join us to foster these conversations. And thank you to the experts of today and every other person who had joined the call as well. So this is the end of my job for today. I will now hand over to Mr. Eben all the way from Bangkok as he closes the meeting. Thank you, the experts and everyone on the call once more. Over to you, Eben, who is our convener.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bira. Great job. Thanks, everyone. I see that we've gone more than 2 hours just discussing the future of River State and the future of the South South, really, and the future of Nigeria. For us at Policy Shapers, this is a pilot, and we hope that if this is successful, it's something that we can implement in other states and see how to bring citizens together to sort of take charge of their own future and take charge of the future of their states. Apologies, I couldn't join all through because I had just landed in Thailand at the time the event began, but I was able to listen into most of the conversation. Very well said. Thanks a lot. Just as we've done for all of our previous conversations. The findings and the feedback from each speaker obviously will be credited to them, and all that information will make it into the Rivers 2050 Vision book, which Udo and her team has been doing a great job in putting together. And we hope that by the end of August, we should have like a draft that we can begin to look at and edit in preparation for finalization in September. The book itself will be launched in November. Still working around what a good date would be like, because we want the state government and the state leaders as much as possible to be able to participate in that launch. So we'll keep you posted. And for the experts, you obviously be the first. I mean, policy shapers are already in-house, so you guys already are going to know. But for Zia and Pamode and Co, you definitely be the first to know once the book is out, so that you can also get an advance copy. And just as Pamode said, we've tried our best to ensure that we record every session from all of these conversations, because again, we're doing it for posterity and also doing it as a way that we believe that other people will be able to learn from this in the future, just as Terry had said. So yeah, so we'll have this recording as well on YouTube so that people can refer to that, and we'd have to try to have the site as long as possible with all the meeting notes and recordings as well available for people to come and learn from, and for this to be a document of some sort of the work that has gone in over the past few months, for the past 18 plus months. So yeah, so just to say thank you, I don't want to take too much time, Bira, but just to say thank you, everyone. This has been amazing. We might have a couple more engagement sessions, not focus group conversations, but engagement sessions, because we're trying to see how we can get the candidates from when campaigns launch officially in August and September. We want to see if we can speak to some of the flag bearers from some of the political parties to also get them to align with the vision, because we know that there's need for political will to be able to deliver this. And I think the earlier the better. We don't have to wait till they get into office. The earlier the better for us to be able to engage them and get them on board. So you might still see some of these things come on before, if we're successful. Maybe politics, you never know, you might reach out and they never take us seriously. But let's see, we plan to engage them, and if we are able to lock down some dates, at least we might have 1 or 2 more additional sessions as ad hoc sessions, not as mandatory sessions. This is the end of the mandatory. What we signed up to do, we have delivered it. So congratulations to Bira and his team, and all the members of the task force for delivering this. Okay, thanks everyone. It's already past midnight here. I just thought to stay up so that I can say thank you to everyone. Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your evening and nights from wherever you are. And we'll keep you posted.